Hello and welcome to Taming UPSC. In this video, I will be discussing about invasive alien species. Invasive alien species may not be a household term, but their impact on planet can be monumental. IPBS, which is Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, has released a comprehensive report on invasive alien species and their control that exposes the severity of the threat these invasive species poses. Let's talk a little bit about IPBS. It was established by member states in Panama City on 21st April 2012 by 94 governments, and India is a founding member. It strengthens the science policy interface for biodiversity and ecosystem services for conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, long-term human well-being and sustainable development. And one of the fact is that it is not a UN body. But at the request of the IPBS plenary and with the authorization of the UNEP Governing Council in 2013, the UNEP provides secretariat services to IPBS. Now let's come back to the report published by IPBS. And one additional fact is that all states member of the United Nations are eligible for IPBS membership. And okay, now let's come back to the report. What are the major highlights about the invasive alien species? According to the report, more than 37,000 alien species have infiltrated various regions and ecosystems across the globe. Out of these, 3,500 are classified as invasive alien species. The water hyacinth ranks as the world's most widespread invasive alien species on the land. Lantana, a flowering shrub, and the black rat hold the second and third position on the global invasion scale. The brown rats and house mouses are also widespread invaders. They were intentionally introduced for perceived benefit in sectors such as forestry, agriculture, horticulture, aquaculture, and as pets. However, their negative impact on biodiversity was not considered. Invasive alien species has played a significant role in 60% of documented global plant and animal extinctions. These species are now recognized as one of the 5 primary drivers of biodiversity loss, along with land and sea changes, direct exploitation of organisms, climate change, pollution. The fifth one is invasive alien species. Nearly 80% of the documented impact of invasives on nature's contribution to the people are negative. And you can see the regional distribution that 34% of the impact of biological invasions were reported from Americas, 31% from Europe and Central Asia, and 25% from Asia and Pacific, and about 7% from the Africa. Invasive alien species are most damaging on islands. On more than 25% of all the islands, the number of alien plant now exceeds the native plant. Okay, now coming to the invasive alien species about which we have talked. So what are the invasive alien species? These are also known as invasive exotic species or non-native species. It refers to the organism that have been introduced to regions or ecosystem outside of their native range and have established self-sustaining population. These species have often outcompeted native species and disrupt the balance of the ecosystem, leading to a range of negative impact. Now let's see a few examples of invasive alien species. The chistrid fungus. It has been reported that they are responsible for wiping out 100 species of frogs, toads, and salamanders. And now let's talk a little bit about Nile perch. It is found in the Nile, and basically they are native to Nile, but it has been introduced in Lake Victoria, home to hundreds of cichlid fishes. If, as we and this being a predator fish, it has greatly reduced the number of the it has greatly reduced the number of cichlid fishes in Lake Victoria. And the next invasive species is European shore crab. It is an aggressive predator and it outcompetes native species for food and space. And the next one is buffalo grasses. It is native to Africa, Asia, Middle East. It was intentionally brought to arid part of the US and planted for cattle forage and erosion control. And as it was drought intolerant, and it has now outcompeted the native species and have also caused they also cause wildfire. And coming now, the next one is Japanese knotwood. They are also known as Renotoria japonica. They are also known as Renotoria japonica. It can sprout from very small section of rhizome. It was introduced in UK as an ornamental. It was introduced in UK as ornamental plant, but it has crowded out the native plants. Branch piped corals, also known as Cariju rhizi, it overgrow and kills native corals. And eucalyptus, we are all aware about eucalyptus, that they are decay resistant. They have decay resistance wood, and it has been detrimental for the cavity nesting birds like woodpecker and owl. And the next one is Prosopis julifora. This it has been introduced in India for the shortage of firewood and as a fence to agricultural field from animals, but it is very hard and expensive to remove the plant as it can regenerate even from the roots. And now coming to the next plant, that is acacia. It is grown in Western Ghat by inverting grasslands and shrub forest for tanning production, which has destroyed the original habitat of Nilgiri tahar. Now let's look at the factor responsible for the rising invasive species. The first one is human introduction, that is the deliberate introduction of non-native species for purpose like gardening, landscaping and pest control can lead to invasions when these species escape the cultivation. The next one is climate change. The elevated temperatures and shift in precipitation patterns promote environmental conducive to the colonization and proliferation of invasive species. Shift in the timing of seasons can disrupt the life cycle of the native species, making them more susceptible to invasive competitors and predators. And the third one is globalization of trade and travel. As the increased international trade and travel have facilitated the unintentional movement of species across borders, cargo ships, airplanes, and vehicles can inadvertently carry invasive species within cargo through ballast water or attached to their surface, facilitating their unintentional spread. Introduced in introduced to Australia in the late 1800s via shipwrecks and pearling industries, the black rat is regarded as one of the worst invasive species by IUCN. So basically, what are the general impact of invasive alien species? The first one is the ecological impact. Invasive species can outcompete native species for resources such as food, water, and habitat, leading to a decline or extinction of native species. Some invasive species may become predator of native species, causing a decline in prey population. These disruptions can have far-reaching consequences for ecosystem stability and resilience. The economic impact. The annual costs of invasive alien species have quadrupled every decade since 1970s. In 2019, the global economic cost of these species exceeded a staggering $423 billion annually. Species like zebra mussels can clog water pipes and infrastructures, leading to expensive repairs and maintenance. Impact on food supply. The reduction of food supply is the most common consequences of alien invasive species. Examples include the Caribbean false mussel damaging the fisheries in Kerala. Water hyacinth in Lake Victoria led to the depletion of tilapia fishes, impacting the local fisheries. Now let's come to the health implication. As we are aware that species like Aedes albopictus and Aedes aegypti spread diseases like malaria, Zika, and West Nile fever, impacting human health. Now coming to the what are the international instruments and programs on invasive alien species? The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework 2022 envisages to reduce the rate of introduction and establishment of invasive alien species by at least 50% by 2030, and other some conventions like Convention on Biological Diversity 1992, which was adopted in 1992. It also recognizes invasive alien species as major threat to environment. And the next one is CMS, which is known as Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species. This intergovernmental treaty aims to conserve migratory species and include measures to control or eliminate invasive alien species already present. And the next and the last one is CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, 1975. It focuses on ensuring international trade does not threaten the survival of wild animal and plant, and it also considers the impact of invasive alien species involved in trade. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.